There we go. Hello. It didn't. I don't know what that was. That was weird. How are you doing? I hope you're doing. Oops. I hope you're doing well. Dude, I just downloaded my ad block or my VPN, and for some reason my chat keeps refreshing. I don't know why. It's very strange. Doesn't make sense to me. But whatever. Hello. How are you? We're playing fucking Infinite Craft today. Cause why not? Cause I wanted to. Okay. Can I search anything? How about the color green? Yeah, see, I can't search anything because I haven't made anything. Water and earth. Plant. Plant. Fire. Smoke. Smoke. Wind. Cloud. That's cool. Whoops. Cloud. Oh, shit. Rain and cloud. Ooh, rainbow. Rainbow and rain. What? Rainbow cloud? Rain. Oh, okay. Well. Rainbow and wind. Okay. I don't actually have a plan for this, but now that I see rainbow, how about, can we get, like, the colors of the rainbow? Whoa. Ah, not what I meant. Alright, whatever. Cause like rainbow, I need color, right? Color, let's do plant and earth. I kinda wanna get like paper. So that'll go. This will go in this corner here. This is the rainbow corner. You know what I mean? It's the rainbow color right under me. It's perfect. Hello? Hi, you have a question. What's your question? Tree. Oh, wait, I didn't even notice. Tree. Fuck. Tree. Earth. Forest. Forest. Rain. It's gonna be rainforest. Rain. Fuck. Fuck. Shit. Smoke. Smoke and wind. Cloud. I already did that, I think. Fire and smoke. A volcano. Okay. Not where I'm going. If you're not new to Infinite Craft, have you ever gotten a first discovery? I am actually new to Infinite Craft, but I watch a lot of people play it and I like it. It gets interesting. So, oh, what the fuck? Hold the phone. I understand why it looks so weird. I'm so sorry. Ah, shit. No, I didn't want the image. First of all, I want to do that. Second of all, I want to do this. I just realized why it looks so weird. I'm so sorry. There we go. I like your answer I'm following. Oh, thank you. I watch a lot of people play it and it's interesting. I want it. I hate, wait, I'm sorry. What's your name? I hate myself, not gonna lie, bro. No. I like you. We've only been talking for 2 minutes and I like you. Come on, dude. I just realized you can't hear. I mean, not that I'm fucking listening to anything, but you can't hear anything. Should probably listen to music, right? Hold up. We're gonna go over here. Ah! Over here. Oh my god. My computer's shitting itself. I'm so sorry. Hey, I'm a minor. Okay. Hold up, bro. Hands in the air. You're a cool person. Hands in the air. I'm moving on. I ain't saying shit else. Shit. I was gonna put on music. You got me fucked up. Oh my god, I'm gonna put on music if this fucking... Asking out your crush soon? Any tips, bro? You don't know how I got my fiance? Is we talked about nerd shit. Just talk about nerd shit. See what they like and talk about it. That's it. That's all I got. And I wish you the best. How do you spell it? I don't know. She and I are anime nerds. Bet she's nerdy as hell. Fuck yeah. What anime do you like? Talk about that. I'm gonna make sure that this is low as fuck. This ain't gonna be Rosoro right now.
What if you could make a song using
What is Rosoro? Okay. And an ad. That probably means that I shouldn't be listening to this. Gray screen W? What? Okay. Now you should be able to hear it. Just shy. Oh, shit. Sorry. Shit at grammar on tablets. Okay, got it. Oh, ReZero. You good. I get you. Hey, do you... Because you're younger than me. Do you know what int means? Like, oh, they're doing an int right now. Or they're so int right now. What the fuck is int? I assume it's INT, but what the fuck does that mean? I feel so fucking old nowadays, and I'm 25. I feel so fucking old. It bothers me. Anyways, back to this. Earth Rainbow. What do you make? Fuck you. Does Earth and anything just make that? Fuck. What about Earth and Fire? What do you make? Aang? Oh, lava. Why am I making fucking rainbow volcano? Unicorn tree. I don't know. Christmas rainbow. Reindeer. Fuck. That's not how you spell reindeer. Only learned lol at like 8. Fair enough. Reindeer, unicorn is a fucking reindeer. God damn it. Rainbow. Fuck. Lava. Did I do this already? Volcano. Volcano, lava. I did this already. Unicorn, rainbow. Double rainbow. Is there a triple rainbow? Oh, what do you make? just a fucking rainbow. Rainbow, Christmas, reindeer. I already did that. Reindeer. Santa! Fuck. Santa Christmas present. Son of a bitch. Alright. I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. Oh, I understand what you meant by gray screen. I'm so sorry. I am fucking... I don't know what's going on. I think it's because of NordVPN, if I'm honest. I'm so sorry. I was like, what the fuck do you mean by gray screen? Rainforest eruption. Son of a... What? How am I getting lava shit? How am I getting volcano eruption? God damn it. How? Okay. Christmas and Christmas. How about that? Christmas tree. Son of a bitch. Christmas tree and Christmas tree. Fucking... God. Alright. Cloud and cloud. Make rain. I knew that. Rain and rain. You make something else. Rainbow. Rainbow and rainbow. Rainbow. Rainbow and rain. Rainbow. Rainbow and plant. Flower. I want color. How do I get color? I get color by art. I get art by... paper, I guess. How do I get paper? Wood. That's good. Wood and wood. Tree, son of a bitch. Tree and tree. Forest. Wood. Paper! Okay. 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 Fuck. How do I get art from paper? Flower? Book. Okay, not bad. Book, paper. Fucking what? Knowledge. Okay. Alright, not where I'm going. One of my old friends I beat up ruined my search history on school thing. He wrote that... What the fuck? First of all, fucked up friend. First of all, friend's fucked up. Fuck me. I'm so sorry. I don't even know how old you are, and I'm cursing like a sailor. I apologize. Don't take anything from me, please. Dear God. Bookshelf. Book. Fucking... I'm back to Christmas because this is what I do. This is what I did. I did that. Poinsettia. I guess that makes sense, actually. I guess that makes sense. That's fair. Poinsettia. Okay. Poinsettia Christmas. Fuck. Poinsettia paper. Fuck. What? Okay. Art. Oh, wait. Rainbow paper. How about that? Literally, how? Fuck. Money gift. Bribe. Fair enough. Money poinsettia. What? Okay, bookshelf. I already did that, I think. Fuck. How do I get the art? Huh. Unicorn paper. Huh? Magic flower. What's a magic flower? A fairy. That's not a flower. Sorry, little girl. Unicorn fairy. Princess. Magical princess. Is a fairy. Okay. Fuck. I get color. Okay. I'm so sorry. This is gonna end when I get all the colors of the rainbow. If I'm totally honest. Pot of gold. Gold! Wait. Shit. Oh, I thought that was gonna be good too. What's a leprechaun princess? A prince. Prince leprechaun. Is this gonna give me short king? Oh no, it's gonna be king though. King. You're gonna give me queen? No. Do you give me princess? Or queen, I mean? Fucking goddamn it. Royalty. Just shit. King and royalty. Queen. Okay. There we go. I just wanted queen. Nothing else. No reason. Alright. Want something else. Santa present. No. Why am I doing this? I don't know. I don't know why I'm doing this. This doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. Why is Santa bribing you? Is that what this is? Flower poinsettia. Christmas. Flower royalty. It's a royal flower. A rose. Okay, I'm okay with rose. I'm okay with having rose. Paper rose. Book. Fuck. Magic paper. Spell. Okay. No. Paper. Fuck, dude. Paper and books can give me library, yeah. Poinsettia paper. Drawing? Fuck. Paper. Water. I don't know. Earth paper. Map. Fuck. That makes sense. Shit. Book. No. Why do I keep doing that? I don't know. Double rainbow paper. Cash. Cash? Rose. Flower. Bouquet. Why did I do that? I don't know. Rose. Poinsettia. Fuck. Rose. King. Queen. Okay. There you go. Kings. Give your queen. Oh, there we go. Love. Okay. Interesting. Give your queen some roses. Castle. Castle cash. Okay. Okay. Bouquet. Love. Wedding. Yeah. That sounds about right. Unicorn paper. Magic. I already did that. Paper wood. No. Flower wood. Tree. Fuck. Book. Library. I already knew that. Fuck. Dude, what do I do? I'm stuck. Color. It's like rainbow. But then, like, rainbow paper doesn't give me shit. Rainbow. Rainbow. Pot of gold. Double rainbow. Leprechaun. Son of a bitch. Leprechaun love. Castle. Cash. Poinsettia. Library. Fuck. Christmas tree. Oh, I got a new thing, apparently. Santa loves Christmas. North Pole. Iceberg. Glacier love. Ice. Okay. Icicle. Snow icicle. Snowman. I'm just fucking around right now. Legitimately, I'm just fucking around right now. I'm trying to get new fucking words, dude. I'm trying to get fucking anything else. Poinsettia. Money. Bookshelf. Bribe. Princess. Anything. No. Pot of gold. Leprechaun. Makes sense. Sure. Okay. It's like, for some reason, those can't be. Prophet. Rudolph. Okay. Fairy and magic. Wizard. Princess. Queen. For some reason. Hold on. Wizard. Rainbow. Unicorn. Rudolph. Christmas. Dude, I'm literally just in the same fucking boat now. I got a pig. How'd I get a pig? Pork. Am I just stuck now? Am I stuck in the... Oh, okay. Ham deer. The fuck is a ham deer? Ham dust. Hammer. Profit. Business. Wizard of Oz. Wicked Witch. Wicked Witch and Wicked Witch is Glinda. Wicked Witch of the West. Yeah, Glinda. Can I get her name? Ham deer. Ham witch. The fuck's a ham witch? I'm back. I had to do something. I missed myself. Try castle and wind. Okay. Where is that? Fuck. Hold on. Wind. Fuck. Where's castle? Castle. I literally, I have, okay. Castle. Oh, wow. I don't know how to spell it, apparently. Kite. Okay. Kite. Fuck. Paper. Paper airplane. Book. I don't know. Origami. Oh, that's cool. Mid. Okay. It's a lot of things. Chat. A lot of things just go to fucking everything. Apparently. Loss. What did I do? I don't know. I don't know how I did loss. Bacon. Origami bacon. Damn. Okay. God, no. I know this already. I already did this. Yeah. Fucking fire. Water. Cloud. Fuck. Rainbow puddle. I don't know. Puddle. Paper. Paper mache. Great. Paperback. I'm not getting any closer to art. I don't know how that makes Christmas. Book. Or, fuck. Tissue. It's fair. Bacon. Okay. Shit. How do I get to art? I want to get to, like, fucking... How is this not art? How is that not art, dude? Fucking politician. Bro, what? I don't know what the fuck I'm doing anymore. Point set a spell. Okay. Try castle. Castle wind. Do it, I dare you, castle wind. I thought I just did that. Didn't I? Did I not do that already? Did I not do that? I swear to God I did that. Yeah, kite. It's kite. Chat is lonely, I won't lie. Yeah, I know. I'm aware. I don't got a lot of shit. No clue I left for 6 minutes. That's fair. Yeah, I know. Why did I click on discoveries? I don't know. Profit. Kite and profit. Do you make anything? Wind. Okay. Fuck. I don't even know what this fucking word is. It's like I want to do that in like paper or that in book. Where did it go? Book. Then it just gives me that. Paper, book. Paper, magic, paper, fairy. It's gonna do, yeah. What? I believe coats are made of castles and wind. I believe it too. I believe it too. Pottery and politician for some reason. For some reason. Why? Weird. Scare witch. Straw. Politician. Straw man. Sandstorm. Where am I going with all this shit? At this point, I'm just trying to make a new discovery. Because I don't know what else to do. I just have to fucking, like, wish on a shooting fucking star. Oh, I'm back into Christmas. Alright, stop going back into Christmas. Stop going back into Christmas. Okay, great. Just got a regular fucking witch, I guess. Cauldron and cauldron. Cauldron sandstorm. I don't know. Kleenex. Nice. Blowhard. What the fuck is a blowhard? Oh, great. I don't want him. U.S. President, straw man. U.S. President, Kleenex. Wow. Okay. Mummy witch. What the fuck? What is all this shit? I'm getting no closer. Oh my god, I don't want Donald Trump, bro. Hold up. My first discovery was SpongeBob Obama pants and something else pants. That's pretty good. Something else pants is funny. No, I don't want that. Oh, zombie. Great. What does a zombie and a zombie make? Okay. What the fuck does blowhard mean? Asshole? Then I agree. Okay, hold up. Just clean paper. Oh. Toilet. Fair. Sure, toilet book. Toilet paper. Okay. Hidden gem streamers like you have a blessed day/night. Oh, I didn't even see that. I'm so sorry. Bye. Have a good night. Thank you for stopping by and following. I appreciate you. Wiped? I wiped. I'm gonna go back into fucking Christmas, bro. Not even gonna get like greeting card or anything for paper and present or paper and gifts. It's not gonna be like a fucking greeting card. Marriage. Great. Fucking divorce. Whoa. Oh my god, dude. Oh. Cleaned hay. Straw. Where is straw? I had straw. There we go. Straw and straw. What about that? Hay. Hay and straw. Scarecrow. Scarecrow and straw. Hay. Okay. Sandstorm. Sand. Genie. Okay. Genie and witch. Genie and wish. Lamp. Dust buster. Dust buster. Dust buster. Vacuum. Fuck. Cleaned. Cleaner. Dust buster. Lamp. Zombie plant. Wiped. Okay. How did I get so far off the goal? Magic. Let me get just like a color. Like rose is a great thing for red. Can go there. Present Santa. Phoenix. Planet. Pegasus. Phoenix. What did I just do? What did I just do? There we go. It's fucking weird. Okay, sorry. Unicorn and wind. Pegasus and water. Seahorse. Seahorse and earth. Seahorse. Noah. Noah's Ark. Oh, there we go. Atlantis. Wait, where did paper go? Paper. Does rock be paper? Paperweight. Yes, it does. Paperweight, stone, rock. Okay. Statue. Janitor. Sandman. Dude, how do I get to it? Fucking Rose book. I was gonna say Titanic. Oh, okay, no. Book doesn't go with anything helpful, dude. Doesn't go with anything helpful. Hippocampus. Poseidon. Bro. Oh my god, Egypt. Great. Awesome. Fucking Christ. Sphinx, that makes sense. Egypt and Noah, nope. Ark. I don't know what I'm getting to, bro. Sandcastle. Sick. This is taking me fucking forever to do anything. Black hole, great. Black hole. It's like it's one of the things that's got a whole bunch. God damn it. Okay. Rainbow black hole. Universe. Universe. Rainbow's all the way up here. Rainbow. Shit. I don't know. Great, none of it works properly. Okay, how is that possible? Tremors. Earthquake. Mountain range. Himalayas and black hole. I don't fucking know anymore, dude. Monster, Mount Everest, Yeti, yeah. Bigfoot's fake news, everybody. Oh boy. Okay. How much time has it been? 40 minutes. Okay. Oh, I thought that was gonna be like the Loch Ness Monster or something. Turtle, hold on. What about monster? I'm gonna get the Loch Ness Monster. Gamera? What the fuck is Gamera? I don't know. Sandmaid. Gamerade. Okay. Rainbow. God damn it. Okay. It's not gonna be like Gatorade or anything. Abominable snowman. Just Yeti. Okay. Abominable Yeti. Abominable Gatorade. Gamerade. Okay. Oh, that's right. I can't do that. Jesus. Tremor universe. Okay. Black hole. Sandcastle. Monster. Dark matter. Okay. Oh, I already did that. I don't know. Best. Don't care about you. Big Bang. Big Bang Rainbow. Ugh. Tree of Life. Okay. Fire the Tree of Life. Phoenix, goddammit. Okay. Jesus. Tree of Life. Oops. Oops, oops. Where's paper? Oh my god. Dude. Putting paper so many times. Give me something, right? Postcard, great. Mail, great. Letter, awesome. Ah. If I put rose with letter, okay. Gay. I did get the Titanic. At some point, I got the Titanic. Snowman. What about... Where's Monster? Where did Monster go? All the way down here? I don't fucking know. It was before Turtle, but not too much before... There we go. Not too much before Turtle. Damn it. Okay. Thought I got snow. There it is. It's just gonna be fucking Yeti, of course it is. Oh boy. Rainbow. Double rainbow. Everything just goes back to Christmas. It's fucking insane. That's also fucking insane. Jesus. Beauty. What about beauty? Book. Bible. Oh, man. Okay, I don't want... beauty... paper... magazine, flower. Ugh, bro. Like... rainbow. Unicorn. Shit. Everything on the fucking rainbow goes to unicorn, bro. What the hell? What else do I have? You don't do anything. Oh, wait. Something that's new! Like, even trying to make this... I want art, bro. So I can get color. Wisdom. Wisdom. Paper. Okay, hold on. Wisdom and beauty. Truth. Okay. Wisdom and book. I fucking hate the Bible. Paper Bible. Yeah, book. Fucking. It's gonna go right back to it. Bible magazine. Titanic. Post. Mailbox. Letter. Word. Word. Flower. Poem. Shit. Poetry. Poetry. Paper. Haiku. Haiku. Paper. Poem book. Novel. Gross. Son of a bitch. Novel, magazine, book, newspaper, flower. I don't know. Where'd rose go? Rose. Novel. Romance. Fuck. Haiku. Poetry. Great. Poetry. Where did it go? I just saw it, I thought. Yes. Romance. Shit. This romance paper is gonna be some fucking, like, poem or some shit. Love letter. Okay. Oops. Papers. God damn it. Why do I keep... How do I keep adding a fucking... I don't know, dude. I don't know how I keep adding... Weird. Oh, God. Don't know what else to do. I don't know how to get where I want to get to. Okay, that's how you add multiple amounts of shit. No. Don't add it together. I don't need to. What the fuck is happening? What just happened? Fuck. Please give me all my items back. Okay. Give me all my items back. I need to pace myself, apparently. Okay. Books up here, because it can be like coloring book, art book. Fuck. It's fine. Knowledge, paper, book, wood, I don't know, wood, bribe, pot of gold, corruption, great, troll, fucking time is it? Almost midnight. Jesus. Bro. I get back into Christmas, dude. What the fuck am I doing? Snow White. With Princess and Santa Claus? The fuck? Gold. Okay, gold's a color. Gold's a color. Let's keep gold in the corner here. Gold. How about gold and paper? Money. Shit. That makes sense. Golden book? Bible. Okay. Fuck. Knowledge and gold. Money. Okay. About money and like more gold. Rich. Okay. More gold. Midas. That makes sense. And yeah, it's just gonna be gold again. Okay. Midas. Rich. Gold. Okay. Newspaper. Scandal. Gold. Trump. Trump. Rich. Trump. Okay. Scandal. Pony. Ponygate. I don't know. Ponygate treasure. I don't fucking know. The fuck is Ponygate? Hold on. Ponygate. Where's president? Pony president. The fuck? Love letter. Okay. Corruption. Nightmare moon. Nightmare. Me. Gold president. Word. Tweet. Okay. Hold on. What about gold and word? Because I never did that. Okay. Poem in gold? About that? Okay. Okay. Golden tweet. Trump and golden president. Okay. I think this is a color, right? Whoops. Paper. Book. I already did both of those, didn't I? Fuck. Novel. Gold. Midas. Magazine. Gold. How? I haven't put rainbow up here. I feel like I should. So how about rainbow and gold? Will you give me color? Oh, shit. Gold and rose. Because rose is also a color, right? Crown. Fuck. Fuck, dude. Okay. What's the crowning tweet? Trump. Okay, great. Gold. Gonna give me, rainbow. It's a golden flower, huh? Rose. Okay, great. Awesome. It's not true. At all. Fuck, dude. What do I do? The sand zombie plane. Sure, I don't know. Divorced, wiped, clean. Okay. I have two separate goals that will end my suffering. It's going to be get all the colors of the fucking rainbow. Which I got gold and rose, which could be used to make like maybe yellow and red, right? Possibly. I don't want the. You guys can't see it, but in this corner where my head is where all the gold is, and I keep, like, there's Neil.fun, which I don't want to click, because that's going to get me back to the fucking thing. What's it called? I don't know. Gold Beauty. Princess. Okay. I'm sorry if this adds to whatever fucking noise is here. It's hot. Smoke. Whoops. Oh my god. Gold smoke. Money, somehow. $10. Sand. Ransom. Crap, somehow. Discord. Okay. Pony Celestia? Or Princess Celestia. Oh. Is that like a fucking... I don't know what it's called. Whatever, I don't know what it's called. Golden paper is not a thing. Paper and rose is flower. I need to use the restroom. I will use the restroom and I will be right back. Figure out how the fuck to get the color or art or anything with what I got. Hold up. Okay, I'm back. Sorry. What? Fucking Jesus Christ. Okay. Did I do that already? I don't fucking know. Steam. Swamp. Fuck. Rainbow. Can't do anything. Rainforest. Temple, rainbow. Whoa. Really? Why? Why does that happen? Stop doing that. Fucking hate it. I hate that so much, dude. I'm literally just trying to get out of it. It's fucking annoying, dude. Let me just get brick and temple. What about brick and brick? Wall and wall. Huh. I got another new thing, apparently. Oh, I got another new thing. Pony war. Sandboarding crown. Okay. The fuck is a pony war? Okay, graffiti. Graffiti's close. Rose. Banksy. Okay, graffiti. Paper. Money. How? Graffiti. Fucking. Water. I should put a lot of graffitis out. Hold on. Just combine it with a lot of fucking shit, dude. Go earth. Go go fire. Go wind. Go smoke. Go forest. What's a graffiti forest? It's a tree. Oh, apparently. I got art! Fireworks. Explosion. Fuck. Okay. Hold up. Hold. Got art. Oh, shit. Yeah, art book. Rose. Artist, art. Masterpiece. Son of a bitch. I'm going. Minus. Shit. I just gave myself back a... Fuck. I got art. Okay, I got art. Paper. Where are my shit? Shit. Dude. How the fuck do I do this? Show me the cat. Oh, shit. Ungrateful God AM. Give me 1 second. I'm so sorry. I just saw it. I hope that wasn't too long ago. 1 minute ago. I'm so sorry. Give me 1 second. Cat. This is Luna. This is my beautiful little girl. My beautiful little kitty cat. Hello. Luna cat. Oh, I have the other cat now too. Come here, other cat. And this is Winston. Oh my god, fat ass. You can squeeze and he'll never pop. Anyways, those are my cats. Uh-oh. There we go. Like, what? My computer's running way too much shit right now. For how old this PC is, I got this PC in fucking 2019, and it was already old in 2019. It's bad. It's bad, man. Okay, Rose. Where's Rose? Rose. Oh boy. Not this. Start. Oops. Hold on. Where is it? Where did I literally just had it. Where did it go? It's not down that far, is it? No. I'm just gonna start combining shit with a lot of shit. Here. Wow. Okay. Alright. Where did Ash go? I wanna combine it with more shit. Cause that gave me all new, no, well, not all new shit, but mostly new shit. So where did it go? God damn it, I hate this. Okay, Ash. Oops. This. Excuse me. Thank you, by the way, the Grateful God AM, for showing up. Appreciate you. Fuck me. Fuck. I'm gonna combine it with a lot more shit. How about this? How about this? How about this? It's not working very well. Pencil, I got something with pencil. Conch. No. What about art? Hold up. Pencil and art. What do you do? Drawing. Drawing and paper. Art. Okay. Art. Fuck. Okay. Pencil. Drawing. Art. This. Oh, god damn. Crayon. Crayon artist. Crayon. Fire. Fuck. Oh shit. Grand water. Grand wall. Color. I got paint. Color. Rose. Rainbow. Fuck. Color. Gold. Rainbow. Fuck. I got color. How is rose not the color? Can I just reset this entire thing? Hold on. I don't know. Color. Just give me a whole bunch of color. Think of red things, right? Think of red. Sun color. That's yellow. Oh, damn it. Okay, not that. Color. Fuck. Solar system. Color. Rainbow. Okay. Storm. Fuck. Planet. Sun. Solar system. Fucking goddamn it. Solar system. Earth. Earth planet. Moon. Moon, Earth. Eclipse. Fuck. Okay. Present. Colorful present. It's a gift. Okay, somehow. I guess. Crab color. Lobster. Okay. What is the color of the moon? Okay. What is it, Roy Jabiv? I got blue. I got one of the things. Biv. Roy Jabiv. Fuck. How about black hole color? God damn it. Alright, fine. Give me more color. Blue color. Green somehow. Roy Jabiv. There we go. Somehow I got green. How about green and blue? Cyan. Shit. Okay. I'm like green in color. What do you make? Chlorophyll. Okay. Alright. Fair enough. Oh, no, I just did that. Okay. It's like, how does gold color not give me yellow at all? Where did green go? Let's add these. This is like, you can use, so I don't have to keep pulling from the top where I have them displayed that I have them. Roy Jabiv. I need the Roy Iv. Fuck. Does rainbow color do anything? Probably not, right? Doesn't make any sense. Rain. Okay. Rain color. Blue. Rainbow green. Leprechaun. Fuck. Blue and cyan. Do you make anything? Green. Okay. Green and cyan. Do you... Oh, fuck. Make anything? C. Okay. Eclipse. Color. Rainbow. Rainbow paint. Rain. Fuck. Dude, I'm actually so upset that, like, rose isn't red. I felt like that was the most obvious one. It was blue. Biv! Okay, what about rose green? Leaf. Fuck. Okay, well, you know, it's not terrible. Where did gold go? Because I don't actually... Oh, no, I think I did. I think it was princess or something. I'm gonna try it again. It's crown. Okay. Roy. This is all I need. I need to go in blue. Oh, wait. I did that wrong, but I got the Biv. I need Roy. Ah. Violet. Okay. I got indigo. Indigo. Where's blue? I got violet here. Oh my god. Can I combine those two together to make purple? But I don't need purple. Okay. I mean, I got purple though. Actually, what if I do like purple and blue or something? Indigo, okay. What if I do like purple and green? Oh fuck, why did I do that? I don't know. Yellow! Bro! Okay. Do I have anything that's fucking orange? gold. Okay, great. Awesome. You know, like, gold and gold doesn't fucking... How does gold and gold not do it? Like, yellow and yellow makes gold. Fuck you. Here, yellow and violet. What do you do? Anything? Green. Orange. How do I make orange? How do I make red? Honestly, if I make red, then I can combine red and yellow easy. The color yellow is just yellow. Color of a lobster is red. Oh my god, is red. But I did color of a crab and it didn't give me any color. Why did I do that? I don't know. I'm just gonna continuously say... Roy. Oh my god. Roy Jabov. I fucking did it. Bro. Hold up. Can I mean, I can. Hold on. There we go. Roy Jabov. Let's get these out of the... Oops. Get these out of the way. Roy Jabov. I fucking did it, dude. Oh my god. Started with the B. And I got it. Roy Jabov. Oh my god. How did art not give me the color at all? Like, art book didn't give me... Hold on. Let me try it again. Art book. Where's book? All the way up here, right? Book. Go back to book. Go to art. Artist. Go to son of a bitch. Go to book. Author. Great. Okay. Pink. Pink is an author. For some reason. Pink. Okay. I don't know where the rest of my shit went, but it doesn't matter. Oh my god. The rest of my shit can be deleted for all I care. I fucking did it. Roy Jabov. Oh my god, I haven't made a new discovery, but that can be my next time playing this game, whatever the fuck that's gonna be, I don't know. But thank you guys so much for being here. Appreciate you. I'll see you next time I decide I want to do something stupid. That's what that was. It's fucking stupid. Thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate you. I'll see you tomorrow for something. I wanted to play Minecraft tonight, and then I saw, like, Infinite Craft, and I'm like, ooh, I kind of want to play that. So, maybe I'll play some Minecraft tomorrow. I wanted to, like, beat Minecraft in a fast time. I don't know if I can. But I want to try. So, maybe tomorrow. Thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate you, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. I hate myself, not gonna lie. I hate that that's your name. I'm so sorry. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. Thank you, the Ungrateful God, for joining in the stream as well. Appreciate you guys. Every view, every follow, every moment of your time genuinely does help, and I genuinely appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. I will see you next time. Peace out. Have a good one. Bye. Oops. Sorry.